Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones, and today I'm joined by James Donaldson, whose story spans elite athletics, business leadership, and community service. James had a 20-year professional basketball career playing in the NBA and overseas, earned an NBA All-Star selection in 1988, and later founded the Donaldson Clinic after a career-threatening knee injury sparked his interest in physical therapy. He's also deeply committed to community work, mental health awareness, suicide prevention, and supporting women and minority-owned businesses. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Dana. It's great to be here, and I'm glad we connected and made it happen.
Yeah. Before we begin, I just want to give a quick content note to anybody who's listening or watching. Today's episode will include a discussion of mental health, suicide, and suicide ideation. So please take care. And if you need to skip, then feel free to skip and you can read the show notes. All right. So, James, you've had so many different aspects of your life. You were athlete, business owner, author, podcaster, community advocate. When you look back, what's the turning point that put you on this current path?
Wow. I think my latest experience of going through mental health challenges myself put me on this path. Before that, I had absolutely no idea what this was all about. And like most people, especially competitive athletes, we learn to just shrug it off or, throw a little dirt on it or, just bandage it up and go out there and keep on going. And that's not the right approach, especially with mental health issues. I had to go through that myself to learn all of that and have become a fierce advocate and voice for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. And we can get into my story a little bit later, but that's what got me on this path. And of all the things I've done in the past, this is by far the most rewarding work I've ever done.
I love that because you have done a lot. And I mean, I hate to say this, but as an athlete, especially as a professional athlete, you are an entertainer. And that does have value because as little kids, we watch people like you play and we're going, I want to be like that person. And, now things are a little sketch in terms of how athletes are portrayed. Because we are seeing more of their personal lives than we have in the past, and not too many people. I don't know. I guess it's because we know too much, but I feel like the good needs to come out. We need to see who the athletes are helping and the lives that they're living, because it seems like we're only hearing about the sensationalized stories and not about the people that are actually helping the communities and doing good.
That's true. We're hearing more and more about some of the challenges that athletes are going through. Still very few. I mean, it's still here and there, but not as often as we should be talking about it. Hopefully the athletes are talking about it amongst themselves, amongst their team, their teammates, their coaches, and that inner circle that you belong in when you're an athlete. But there have been a few. In the NBA, I know there was, a couple of guys came out. DeMar DeRozan was a big one that came out a few years ago and talked about his mental health challenges. Kevin Love, perennial NBA All-Star, came out and spoke about mental health and anxiety and depression. And I venture to say all of us, and when I was playing and even now, are going through a lot of mental anguish and challenges because the pressure to win, the pressure to eat, the pressure to hang on to your job, the pressure of what your fans think, what the society thinks, what the newspapers write about you, it just builds and builds and builds. And very few people go through this without really being affected by it one way or the other.
And sometimes it just baffles me because I guess some of the behaviors are pretty rough for me as an athlete to observe, because now everybody feels like they have access to you. And so I have seen some really, especially with the NBA, I've seen some super crazy abusive behaviors of spitting on athletes. And I can't imagine the pressure of playing every night and worrying about injury or making sure that you are winning because you want to hold on to your job or you want to get that contract or whatever it may be. And then, of course, somebody screaming at you and then doing things and you having to deal with that weird outside pressure as well.
Yeah, everybody handles it differently. Substance abuse is a big, big way that a lot of the guys handle the issues they're going through. And the women too, WNBA. When you're being made fun of, your fans are poking at you and you can't really retaliate. It's easy to go back to the hotel room with a bottle or two under your arm or in your duffel bag or drugs that are readily available. It's easy to fall into that if you're not careful. And so that's why I'm always encouraging all the athletes, reach out and talk and talk and talk. And, they see my story out there on social media all over the place. Several of them have contacted me, and I encourage all of them to pick up the phone, give me a call, shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to be right here for you and talk with you and work with you through this kind of thing.
So, in your 20 years of being in the NBA and post NBA, like, what have you learned? Because the game has changed, obviously. And what have you learned about, I guess, what information can you share with an athlete, a young athlete, about taking care of themselves?
Yeah. Very few of the athletes are prepared going into the professional sports, whether it's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, what have you. Very, very of them are prepared for that life in the professional. In high school, it's all fun and games. We're out there competing and the best players move on to college, and it's still fun and games for the love of the sport, your teammates, your camaraderie. When you get to professional ranks, it's for money. Now you're bought and paid for a commodity, and you have to produce. So now with the advent of social media, which wasn't around so much when I was playing, I played in 1980 to 2000. Those years, social media was just about coming out right at the end of my career, but not in a big way. Now it's a big way. Guys can document their every movement, their daily activities. They can put it out there if they want to, or they're being followed around by other people with cameras. Everybody's got a camera now. And
Mhm.
so it's hard to get that privacy and to maintain your own space that you need to have. And that builds on the pressure as well. The exorbitant salaries that are out there now that are reported many times inaccurately, but still in the ballpark. Whether you're making 20 million or 30 million, doesn't matter. You're doing well.
Right.
So people read that and they have those expectations of you because you have that kind of salary attached to you. So I just really want the players to get the help they need, especially men. Men is my really sweet spot I like to work with because I know how it is being, a boy that's told, boys don't cry, to growing up to be a competitive athlete, to playing injured, so your opponent doesn't see that you're limping around out there, or you got a banged up knee, or you can't. You just hide all. They cover it all up, and you learn to cover up a lot of things in life as well. And that's where a lot of the guys go wrong. They learn to cover it up instead of speaking and talking, letting their loved ones know they're hurting, they need some help, letting their doctors know, letting their significant others know. You have to let people know because mental health is one of those things people don't know you're going through it unless you let them know.
So, you talk about your knee injury and how that changed your perspective. What did you learn about being hurt, and how did that influence even your approach to physical therapy and also the recovery, the complete recovery?
Yeah. Well, when I was injured, it was right at the apex of my career. I think I was 30, 32 years old or so. So right at the very apex, right after the All-Star year, all of a sudden it was all gone. The fans forgot about me quickly. The so-called friends I thought I had forgot about me quickly. I'm sitting at home. I can't travel to the games anymore. I can't travel with the team. Isolation. You're by yourself. You're trying to do your rehabilitation. And it really taught me a lesson that, so much of this life that we're living is conditional. It's based on the condition that if you perform well, we'll love you and we'll take care of you. If you don't, you're out. And so that taught me a real hard lesson to learn. I might have been having some mental health challenges back then, even. I can't quite remember, but I know it was a lot of long stretches of lonely days, lonely nights. The phone's not ringing anymore, except for folks calling me and asking me for tickets that I couldn't use anymore, things like that. And so, but that's all part of it. You learn that that's the nature of professional sports, especially. And it's trickling down into our collegiate sports and high school sports, unfortunately, as well, for this tremendous amount of pressure on these young players to perform and to be on top of their game, to not have a bad day or a bad game. And so all these things lead into you have to take care of yourself and you have to have a supportive team around you to help you through these really tough times.
When did you notice that? Because you started talking about the loneliness aspect when the mental health stuff started really creeping in, uh, because of the stress and the strain, and probably lack of skill, just because of the fact that nobody was talking about, "Oh, you should, take time for yourself, or maybe you should meditate, or
Yeah.
talk to somebody about your feelings." When did you really notice that it was mounting?
Of this last episode I went through to get me to where I am now.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, that came, a quick history recap. 2015, I had a emergency open heart surgery for an aortic dissection. This is a very, very serious heart condition that if not treated promptly, I mean, you'll have a aortic rupture. And if that happens, you've got 15, 20 heartbeats left before you just bleed out. So I was right on the verge of that happening. And they diagnosed me real quickly, threw me into surgery, 12 and a half hours, emergency open heart surgery in 2015. It took me a good year to recover from that. I was flat on my back for 3 or 4 months. And my life is starting to get out of my control. I was running the Donaldson Clinic, my physical therapy business I had for 28 years as the sole owner, 100% owner. And I had a management team, but managers manage, they don't really push towards the goal and push towards the vision that the owner has. They did a good job managing, but, we needed additional financing. So I threw all my NBA life savings into it to keep it going as long as we possibly could. This is shortly after the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. Banks still weren't really lending to small businesses the way they used to. So I used my own money to keep it going and spent every last dime of it and my life savings. And then 2016, I had to have part two of this emergency surgery. They did the ascending aorta, the top one, the first year, the descending aorta, the second year, same thing, a dissection. And again, back on my back for 3 to 6 months. But this is 2016. This is when my mother passed away. My wife walked out on our marriage. Once I was kind of semi back on my feet again, she suddenly, with her son, left the marriage when I was out of town for the weekend, came back to an empty house. And that is when things really started cascading downhill. Back home every night for months to an empty house that used to be filled with joy and laughter and kids play and home cooking and all those things. You feel the walls close in on you every single night. And that went on for a good, several months, if not almost a year. And then 2017, 2018, I had another surgery. 2018 was the worst. That was the year that I really hit rock bottom. There was, at my alma mater, Washington State University, a quarterback to be, heir to the throne of the quarterback, Tyler Helinski, that took his life in January 2018, the campus of Washington State University. And that, for some reason, really resonated with me, because all of a sudden the reporters are talking about how great Tyler was, and they're showing the campus at WSU where I used to go, where I used to walk and be. And I'm like, wow, everybody's out here trying to tell Tyler's story, how great he is, how great he was. And I said, I don't want people to tell my story. I want to stick around to tell my story. And that really made me knuckle down and bear through 2018. 12 months of pure darkness and despair and pure hell. But I finally, after 12 months, the darkness started lifting a little bit. And that's when I was able to, kind of have that moment of, wow, I've lost everything. My house I lived in for 40 years. I went into foreclosure, went through a bankruptcy, lost my life savings, lost my mom, lost my wife, lost my stepson, lost my business. I lost everything except for my life. And I was just clinging on to that by fingertips. But I reached out for help. I knew something wasn't quite right. And I happened to have a doctor appointment that I went to, my primary family doctor. And he started to ask me some questions, and I started explaining to him how I was feeling. I was feeling terrible. I think that day, if he didn't intervene, I probably would have went home and took my life.
Hmm.
But he saw that, hey, wow, let's take some extra time. He bumped a couple patients from behind me and took about 45 minutes, asked me a lot of deep probing questions, really got to the root of what's going on. He's like, wow, James, you are suffering through a lot of life events. No fault of your own. I mean, this is life. And one after another after another. And we need to get you some help. And so he said, you got anxiety, you got depression, you have suicidal thoughts. He put me into some behavior counseling courses. He prescribed some prescription anti-anxiety medication. And I just followed course, like the good teammate I am, following the coach's playbook. And he was my coach. I was a player. He drew up the plays and I followed it and we made it through. 6 months later, I was off the medication. 6 months later, I was done with behavioral health counseling, but still had another 6 months to go before that darkness started lifting up a little bit. And so that's what really, that I had to go through. And it really wasn't anything that I did. A lot of people get into these situations by excessive drinking, excessive drugs, gambling, promiscuous behaviors, relationship breakups, things that they've done. But this is just life, and so that's my message to everybody is that, sooner or later, we're all going to go through some difficult times. Usually it's one thing, and then maybe a year or two later, it might be another. A year or two later, it might be another. You can handle that. But it's one thing, and then a month later, and a month later, a month later, whoa, that gets to be too much. So you have to be able to reach out and get your little team around you, which I did. I brought a couple of my old coaches with me and a couple of old friends who knew me for 40 years. And that was my little inner circle that I would talk to day and night, 2 or 3 in the morning if I had to. I had them checking in on me. I was calling them, and that's really what helped me get through it. 12 months, so it took me to work through all of that.
Amazing. I think there's a couple of different things, right? Is that a lot of times as athletes, we like to be busy, right?
Mm-hmm.
We
Yes,
want to have a play, we want to have a pattern, and we feel comfortable when there's a pattern, right? I know I'm practicing every day at this
that's right.
time,
A
right? I got to
routine.
go to the weight
Yeah,
room here, I got to do whatever.
yeah.
And so a lot of times there is that drop off too of when we don't have something to do,
Mm-hmm.
then your brain becomes a very dangerous place to live if there's
Yes,
not something. And that's, I mean, it's not a fault of our own, it's just the nature of being an athlete because a lot of us start when we're little girls and dudes.
yeah,
And so that's just the training is that there always has to be something going on. I'm going to the next thing. And when you have something like that surgery, I mean, that takes away your body
that's right.
and that's our expression.
That's so true, so true.
And if you're
Yeah.
not able to express yourself through your body, then you're, left to your own devices, which is what's going on between your ears. And sometimes that's not a safe place to be. And then you
Yes,
add in outside circumstances that you don't have control over.
yes.
I'm glad that your doctor took the time.
Yeah, me too.
That's a great thing to hear.
That was number
Um,
one. That was
I'm
the
glad
first.
that you had a team,
Yes,
because we need a if you're a team person, you need a team.
yeah.
It's just
That's
you just feel even if you're a solo athlete, like you see these tennis players now, and they have a group of people around them, and it's you heal through community,
yes, that's right.
and that's what. And I'm glad that you were able to recognize that you could tap into your community
Hmm.
so that you're here now.
Yes, so true, so true. And so many guys, we go out alone. We're lone wolves out there, so many of us. Relationships break up. We're sitting on a bar stool, some neighborhood bar, drinking our sorrows away. And that's not the way to approach it. But that's where most guys don't have really a best friend that they can turn to, confide in. And so I encourage all the guys to go out there and find yourself a really close friend, a man friend especially, because men understand men, women understand women so much intuitively, you know.
Mhm.
So go find you a good guy friend that can be your best friend that you can confide all these things in. And you guys will build a bond that will be there forever.
So after you went through this circumstance, you decided to write a book, and it's called "Celebrating Your Gift of Life." And so, was a main message that you want people to take away from that story?
Well, first I wanted to tell my story, which I told myself I wanted to do after Tyler Helinski did what he did to himself. So I was able to tell my story. but also give a lot of helpful advice and hints and exercises in the book of what to do, when you're feeling bad about yourself. Try to write down your thoughts, put them on paper so you can actually do that exercise. So at the back of each chapter, there's a lot of different sections and lined paper that you can actually write in the book, answering questions that are provocative, introspective. And I want people to really kind of think about it as they're going through that. And because if you don't take the time to write, it just becomes a fleeting thought in and out of your mind. But when you write it down, you can come back into it next day, and say, wow, this was my thought. Journaling is a big deal. I journal every single day. I've been doing it for years and years. It's amazing to go back 2 years ago to this day and look at what I wrote then, even 5 years ago, or even last month. You forget so quickly what you've gone through. But when you write
Mhm.
it down every day, that is really therapeutic. And so this book is therapeutic, it's helpful, it's resourceful, and it would be good for anybody to know that these kind of things can happen to anybody. I used to have an old pastor at church who lived to 92 years old. And, at the very end, he's wheelchair bound. He's having his diapers changed. He's being fed 24 hours. And I used to stop by and see him all the time up to those years up to his passing. He used to tell us as a congregation, if you haven't gone through hard times yet, keep on living. Okay.
Right.
Even if you skate through life without any real obstacles, at the very end, old age is going to get up with you and you won't be able to take care of yourself. Keep on living. And so that's true for everybody. All of us are going to go through something at some point.
I love that you journal. I journal as well. I do not hold on to my journal because my journals are,
Right.
I call them rage on a page sometimes.
That's okay.
And and I don't need to go back and look at that. Like
No,
I get rid of it
no.
because in the chronic pain community, a lot of it is, or the belief behind it is that the reason why a lot of us are focusing on the pain and really holding on to the pain has to do with the fact that these are kind of incomplete thoughts, and they're thoughts we're not supposed to have, right? Because depending on your societal role, whether you're a mother or you're a father, or you're an athlete or whatever you may be, a business person, there are certain beliefs about
Mm,
how that person should be perceived by society.
true.
And sometimes that's not true, or sometimes we don't fit the mold, or sometimes it feels incredibly stressful to fit the mold. And so when I write some things, especially because I'm an educator and a teacher, I may say things about how I feel about the students.
Okay.
And it allows me to process that information without it building up in me and having my inappropriate utterances toward a child. So if I'm mad at James for doing whatever, I could be like, James is a pain in my butt and da da da, I can't believe he did that and whatever. And then when I see you tomorrow, I'm like, good morning, James, how are you? Because I have processed my stuff and I can move on.
I got it. Yeah.
And so that helps me because before I'd be like, "Oh, I'm a teacher and it's not
Mm,
okay for me to say mean things to James."
yeah.
But and then I'm mad at you and my eye starts to twitch and then all of a sudden my jaw's clenched and my head starts to hurt because, I'm not supposed to talk bad to James because I want to keep my job. So that's why I get rid of my stuff. So there's no evidence of being mad at James. No, and really for me, the journaling piece was really about processing emotions because I really did feel like as a mother, it wasn't okay to be mad at your kid or
Mm,
whatever. Now, nobody taught me that. I just
right.
made assumptions based on the pressure from society because that's what I grew up seeing. I mean, you and I grew up
Yes.
not too, we were watching the Brady Bunch. We were watching,
That's right. That's
these
right.
shows that portrayed these perfect families. And we all know that's bullshit, but
Yeah.
that's what we kept seeing. So whether you wanted to take in that information or not, that was what was being programmed in your brain, that a
That's
marriage needs to look like this, parenting needs to look like that. If you have a job, it needs to look like this. If
that's
you have a
right.
house, it needs to look like that. And then when those things weren't hitting, then all of a sudden you felt that pressure of like,
Mm,
I'm doing this
mhm.
wrong.
Yes, that's so true. So true. Wow. No, that's good. Good points. Good points.
So that's why, so for me, the journaling allows me to process that stuff.
Mhm.
And it keeps does keep my head straight
Good.
because if you're fighting in your head with stuff, and you don't have a friend to talk to who's willing to ground you and to
Yes.
let you know, like, "Oh, dude, I was mad at my kid yesterday too." And it's
Mm,
sometimes that just happens.
yes,
It's
yes,
okay
yes,
for us to be
yes.
mad, you
Okay,
know?
okay. Wow, wow. Yeah, I tend to journal at night before I go to bed. And so just kind of rehashing the course of my day and the good and the bad, the ugly and all that. Just put it all in. I mean, I dictate mostly and it
Mhm.
translates into a Word doc for me. So that's good. Makes it easier and I can just save it. I don't rarely go back once in a while looking for thoughts about an old girlfriend or something. I'll go back and
Yeah,
see
some
what I thought.
reflective.
Yeah, yeah. But rarely do I go back, but I could go back if I want to. And this is probably 15, 20 years now of this. It's all up in the cloud waiting for me one of these days. So it's
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess my ultimate fear is, like, I don't want my kids reading it and be like, "Damn, she was a mess."
All right. Don't write anything down you'll be regretful for.
Well, that's the thing, and then you're editing what you're journaling about, and that makes it weird. The point is expression, right? Is
Yes.
this is how you express yourself, this is how you process your information. So, before we go, you created a, blog about standing above the crowd. How does that help you spread your message, and how does it support the work that you're doing?
Well, I grab a lot of information from the internet all over the place and kind of repurpose it into my blog. And once in a while, I write my own, but most of the time it's repurposed information that's already been out there. And it's just furthering my message of being an advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Talking about everything from PSTD, bipolar, anxiety, schizophrenia, eating disorders, you name it, the whole gamut. I mean, the articles are vast and various, and it's every single day. I've got things pre pre posted. What's the word? Already
Preloaded.
preloaded till next January 2027. I was looking at my calendar, and I'm like, wow, this is going to keep on going for a while. But I just keep adding more and more. I think it's just a great way to keep spreading the word. And I put my little blurb in there about me and my experiences, make a little mention about my book if you want to pick it up and those kind of things. So that's in every blog as well. But it's standingabovethecrowd.com. You can go to it anytime and read along with me, subscribe to it, and it'll come to your inbox every day.
Fantastic. James, thank you so much for joining me today. Is
Yeah.
there another way people can get in touch with you?
Well, my email is jamesd @yourgiftoflife.org. And please shoot me an email. I'm kind of a one-man band right now, and that's fine. I like it personal. I like it intimate. I like it up close and personal one-on-one. I respond to all the emails. They come directly to me. There's no filter, nobody in the middle, and they come directly to me and I will get right back to you. I find that men, especially, have reached out to me throughout the years I've been doing this, just let me know their stories. I remember, matter of fact, I shared that one with you when we did our pre-interview. And, I reached out to him and talked to him, had a great talk with him. He seems to be doing better, but he definitely needs a friend. He needs somebody to talk to, somebody to understand what he's going through. And this is in general what most men go through. Men, so don't try to be the tough guy and be all by yourself. We're in this together and you're not alone. You are not alone. Please don't feel ashamed. There's no shame in this game, as we say, right? So reach out for the help you need and reach out to people who can help you.
James, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana. This is wonderful. Thank you so very much. Okay. Bye bye.